You know, it's easy to think that staying healthy into your 90s must take some secret trick, special diet, a rare gene, maybe even a little luck. But today, we're going to meet someone who proves otherwise. He's 92 years old. He still drives his old pickup truck. He still wakes up without an alarm, tends to his garden, and chats with neighbors like time's never caught up to him. And here's the best part. He hasn't been sick, not even once in the last 30 years. No hospitals, no serious illnesses, just a steady, simple life. His secret? It's not really a secret at all. It's 5 small habits. The kind of habits anyone could build, but the way he lives them, with patience, with joy, with wisdom, that's where the magic is. So, if you've ever wondered how to grow older without growing weaker, or how to stay healthy without chasing fads, this story is for you. Because sometimes, the best answers come from those who've simply lived well. Welcome to our wisdom. Let's begin. He was born in a small farmhouse in the 1930s, back when sugar was rationed and kids walked miles to school. We'll tell you his childhood was humble, chasing chickens in the yard and swinging on an old tire. At 92 years old, he sips his morning coffee and grins at the calendar on his wall. Why? Because he hasn't been sick in 30 years, and he still drives himself to the grocery store every day. You read that right? At 92, he still gets behind the wheel, and those 92 candles on his cake, their Unlitia hasn't stopped blowing them out for a while. He brags about it like it's a championship title, laughing that his doctor double-checks if he's sure he hasn't been sick. The doctor just winks and says, "At your age, the only thing you're catching up on is life itself." Every time anyone meets him, he has that same spark in his eyes. Still young at heart, he jokes, twirling the steering wheel of his old car. He might feel young, but the funny lines at the corners of his eyes show a life lived to the fullest. In his cozy living room, vintage photographs hang on the wall. Him at 20, at 40, at 70, all of them smiling wide. None of those pictures show a frail old man, just someone who's always been on the move. He shows them off with pride, each photo, a proof of a life that just kept going. He was sitting on his porch one afternoon, the summer sun warm on his shoulders. He leaned back in his rocking chair and took a slow sip of peppermint tea, eyes on the garden he tended. Around him, marigolds and basil were blooming proof of his daily handiwork. Visitors often wonder, "How do you manage to stay so healthy after all these years?" He chuckled, obviously expecting the question. "It ain't magic," he said, tapping his chest with a grin. "There ain't one secret, just 5 little habits I stick to." These weren't fancy routines or complex diets. They were just simple parts of his everyday life. Right. And after 30 years without so much as a sniffle, he was happy to share them, raised a finger for emphasis. "All right, buddy," he said with a grin. "Let's talk about the first one." The first habit was all about motion. Before the sun climbed high, he was already on his feet. Some people call it exercise. He calls it living. Every morning, I lace up these old sneakers, he explained, and I hit the road. He doesn't use the fancy word exercise. For him, it feels too labored. He thinks of it as just ordinary daily activity. Before most of us are even awake, he's out there. It's walking briskly. He sets a pace that would surprise folks half his age. 1 foot in front of the other, that's all it takes, he says. As if it's the simplest thing in the world. That very morning, a cool breeze was coming off the lake by his house. He stepped out in his rumpled old cap and set off down the street, whistling an old tune. Neighbors waved from their porches, and he waved back, moving a pile of snow from the sidewalk as he went. Next thing he knew, his morning walk had turned into an impromptu block cleaning session. He only noticed when his cheeks were flushed and his cap was missing. A dog barked at him from next door, and he realized he'd walked 2 miles without even meaning to. I was just out for a stroll. Then suddenly, I'm leading the cleanup crew, he laughed. For him, staying active never felt like a chore. Walking, gardening, even a little dancing in the kitchen when his favorite song comes. Ain't it all counts. I move around all the time, he said, stretching and rocking gently in his chair. He swayed side to side, demonstrating the simple stretches he does every morning. He even does a little dance move, joking that he learned it at a swing contest back in the 50s, sitting there. The old man was showing better balance than some 20-year-olds. If I stay still, I'll rust up real quick, he said with a grin. Even better, he rarely visits the doctor except for the usual checkups. No piles of pills, no long list of ailments. He figured being on his feet kept the cobwebs out of his bones. Keeps the engine greased, he said, patting his chest. It wasn't a miracle potion or a fancy gadget, just good old-fashioned movement, of course. Some mornings his joints protest and he feels stiff, but he never lets that stop him. Even if my back aches, I'll still walk around the block, he said, and he does this every single morning, one foot in front of the other. That was habit one. Said it wasn't the whole secret, but it was the foundation. Without those daily walks and chores, he says, he might not feel as full of life. He smiled and patted his chair arm. Careful, he teased. If I give away all my secrets, I'll have to start a new list next week. Just like that. He stood up again, ready to water his basil and head back outside. It was clear, never underestimate the power of moving your body. Habit number 2, the power of simple. Fresh food. If you ask him what's really keeping him ticking at 92, he'll chuckle and say, "It's all in the kitchen, my friend." You see, his second habit has nothing to do with fad diets, superfoods, or counting calories. For him, it's simple. Eat real food and your body will thank you. Every morning after his walk, he heads straight for his tiny but charming kitchen. The walls are lined with wooden shelves, filled with glass jars of dried herbs, oats, and nuts. No fancy packaging, no processed snacks. It's just ingredients you can pronounce. I've been eating like this since I was a boy, he says, cracking an egg into a sizzling old cast iron pan. His breakfast is always the same: 2 farm-fresh eggs, a slice of homemade bread, and a bowl of seasonal fruits. Today it's strawberries and bananas. Yesterday it was apples and walnuts. Simple, fresh, uncomplicated. He laughs when people talk about the latest miracle diet. For him, it's never been about avoiding this or adding that. Just don't eat too much junk and you'll be fine, he says with a wink. Growing up, meals came from the backyard, not the freezer aisle. He still grows his own vegetables, peppers, leafy greens. His little garden provides most of his meals. Lunchtime rolls around and he's back at it. A fresh salad with greens he picked himself, a bit of grilled chicken, and a drizzle of olive oil. Nothing fancy. No dressing from a bottle. You know what's in this dressing? He asks, holding up a small jar. Olive oil, a squeeze of lemon, pinch of salt. That's it. He has a small plate of mixed nuts sitting by his armchair for when he gets peckish in the afternoon. No candy bars, no potato chips, just almonds, walnuts, maybe a piece of dark chocolate if he's feeling fancy. He doesn't starve himself. He loves his food. He savors every bite. But portion control? Right. That's automatic for him. When you eat real food, your body knows when to stop, he explains. You won't catch me polishing off a family-sized bag of chips. Dinners. Light but hearty. Often a vegetable soup simmering slowly on the stove, rich with herbs from his garden. A piece of baked fish, or maybe lentils, keeps it seasonal, local, and homemade. Even his snacks have a story. He's known for making his own yogurt. Twice a week, he sets a pot of milk to gently simmer, adds his secret culture, and lets nature do its work. Store-bought's too sweet for me, he says, shaking his head. His yogurt is tangy, thick, and filled with good bacteria that keep his gut happy. It's not just what he eats, but how he eats. No eating on the go, no mindless munching in front of the TV. Every meal is an event. The table is set, even if it's just for him. Small cloth napkin, a proper plate, sometimes even a flower from the garden. Food deserves respect. He says simply, he believes that modern problems come from modern habits. Fast food, processed snacks, sugary drinks, they're shortcuts, and shortcuts have a price. Back in my day, you had to work for your meal, he remembers. You planted it, you harvested it, you cooked it, you respected it. That respect shows his skin, though lined with age, still has a healthy glow. His digestion? Never a problem, he says proudly, because I feed it right. Of course, he allows himself little indulgences. A slice of homemade pie on Sundays, a small glass of red wine with dinner. But even those treats are made with care, from scratch, with real ingredients. His relationship with food is not about restriction. It's about connection. It's the earth, to tradition, to his own well-being. And it's a habit he's never broken. He leans back after a good meal, hands on his belly, satisfied, but never stuffed. People ask me why I'm never sick, he says, smiling. I tell them, you are what you eat, and I choose to be real. As the sun sets, you'll find him back in the kitchen, preparing a small herbal tea, a mix of chamomile, mint, and a touch of honey. No soda, no late-night snacks, just a warm, calming ritual to end the day. It's not a diet, he insists. It's just how I live. And with that, he raises his mug, toasting to simple, honest food. That's his second secret. No gimmicks, no magic, just fresh, real food, prepared with love and eaten with gratitude. It's a habit that's kept him thriving for 9 decades and counting. Habit number 3. A happy mind stays a healthy body. Ask him if he's ever felt lonely, and he'll give you a look that says, not a chance. His third habit is all about people, connection, and keeping his mind busy with things that make him smile. To him, staying healthy isn't just about the body, it's about the heart and mind. 2. Laughter's the best medicine, he always says. And if you spend even 5 minutes with him, you'll see it's not just a phrase. With chuckles, friendly teasing, and stories that get more colorful every time he tells them. He loves having visitors, family, old friends, even the postman who delivers his letters. Every person is a chance for a good conversation. He keeps a small bench right by his front yard, shaded under an old maple tree. That bench is famous in his neighborhood. People passing by know they're welcome to sit, chat, and share a story. Kids stop with their bikes, teenagers wave, neighbors drop in with fresh-baked bread. He makes time for everyone. You know why? People get sick? He asks, leaning in like he's about to tell you a secret. They stop talking. They stay inside their own heads too much. It's no way to live. For him, the cure is simple. Stay social, stay curious, stay connected. Even when he's alone, he keeps his mind busy. He loves puzzles, crosswords, and even those brain-training games his granddaughter showed him on a tablet. Gotta keep the engine running, he says, tapping his temple. He spends time reading the newspaper, doing a little light woodworking in his shed, even learning new things. Last year, he taught himself how to video call his family. Now, Sunday mornings are. For FaceTime with his grandkids, even if they live states away, his memory is sharp, but he's humble about it. It's not magic, son. I just don't let my brain get lazy. He believes that a busy mind is a healthy mind. He even volunteers twice a week at the local community center, whether it's helping with small repairs, teaching kids how to plant herbs, or just sitting and chatting with folks his age. He stays involved. Idle hands are the devil's playground, he jokes. If I sit around doing nothing, I'll start feeling old. What's more, he doesn't let small worries get to him, stress. He acknowledges it, then lets it pass. You can't change the weather by worrying, he shrugs. So why let it ruin your day? His calm attitude is contagious. People leave his porch feeling lighter, like they've just had a dose of good old-fashioned common sense, and perhaps that's his true secret. He knows how to enjoy life without overcomplicating it. He doesn't dwell on regrets. He doesn't chase after things he can't control. He focuses on what's right in front of him, the people, the stories, the simple joys. His evenings are never spent doom-scrolling through news or complaining about aches and pains. Instead, he plays cards with friends, shares jokes, and tells old family stories. Every laugh, every smile is part of his daily vitamin. He says it keeps his blood pressure down, his spirits up, and his immune system sharp. And science might agree, but he's not quoting studies. He's just living proof that a happy mind keeps the doctor away. Sometimes, after a good chat, he'll sit quietly and watch the sunset, grateful for another peaceful day. He doesn't need grand adventures or exotic vacations. His joy comes from small, meaningful connections. Don't underestimate the power of a good laugh and good company, he says, leaning back with a satisfied grin. That's kept me healthier than any pill ever could. So that's his third habit. Simple, yet powerful. Keep your mind active and your heart open. Talk to people. Laugh often. Stay curious. For him, it's not just a habit, it's a way of life. Habit number 4. Rest like it matters. The art of proper sleep and balance for him. Staying healthy into his 90s isn't about burning the candle at both ends. His 4th habit is what he calls the lost art of resting right. He swears by it. People think hustle is the answer to everything, he says, shaking his head. But if you don't rest well, you're running on empty. Every evening, like clockwork, he winds down his day with purpose. Not by accident, not by scrolling endlessly on a glowing screen. His bedtime routine is sacred, simple, calming, and consistent. Your body loves rhythm, he explains. Give it the same signals every night and it'll thank you. His evening ritual starts right after dinner. He'll take a slow stroll around his garden, sometimes barefoot, feeling the earth beneath his feet. It's not exercise at this point. It's more of a gratitude walk. It helps me digest my dinner and my thoughts, he says with a smile. After that, the lights in his home start to dim. Not suddenly, gently, one by one. The bright overheads are replaced by warm, soft lamps. He might light a small candle on the table, enjoying the way. The flicker dances across his photo frames. He believes light matters. You can't expect your brain to know it's bedtime if you're shining the sun in its eyes at 10 p.m., he jokes. About an hour before bed, he brews his favorite herbal tea, a simple blend of chamomile, lavender, and a hint of lemon balm. He sips it slowly, never rushed. During this time, he avoids loud noises, screens, or anything that would wake up his nerves, as he puts it. Instead, he listens to soft music, often old jazz records or gentle instrumental melodies. He never brings his phone or tablet into the bedroom. That space, he says, is for sleep and sleep alone. You wouldn't bring your laundry into your kitchen, would you? So why bring work and stress into your bed? Asks, raising an eyebrow. His bed itself is nothing fancy. Firm mattress, clean cotton sheets, and a wool blanket for chilly nights. But he swears by one thing: an open window. Fresh air is the best sleeping pill there is, he says. Even in winter, he cracks it open just a little. He believes that a cool, slightly breezy room helps him sleep deeper. He's usually asleep by 9:30 p.m., like clockwork. And he always wakes up with the sun, no alarms needed. Your body's smarter than you think, he says. If you treat it right, it knows when to wake up. But it's not just about sleep duration, he focuses on quality. He avoids caffeine after lunch, keeps his afternoons calm, and listens to his body. If he feels the need for a short nap, he takes it, but never too long and never too late in the day. A 20-minute cat nap is a gift. A 2-hour nap is a mistake. He laughs. Beyond sleep, he's a big believer in balance. He doesn't overdo anything, everything in moderation, including moderation, he jokes. Whether it's work, socializing, or physical activity, he listens to his limits. If his knees feel sore, he opts for a gentler walk. If his mind feels cluttered, he takes extra quiet time. He sees rest not as laziness, but as maintenance, like changing the oil in a car. Rest repairs what life wears down, he says. He also avoids overstimulation. His days are filled, but not packed. He never double books himself, never rushes from one thing to another. Slow down, enjoy what you're doing, then move on to the next. It's a rhythm that's served him. Well, his philosophy is clear. Rest is not a reward you earn after being busy. Rest is part of the work of staying healthy. And at 92, with a clear mind and steady hands, it's hard to argue with his results. As the stars begin to peek out, you'll find him tucked into bed, small smile on his face, grateful for the day. Unbothered by the chaos of the world, his final words before sleep, a simple, quiet thank you. That's his 4th secret. Respect your rest. Sleep like it matters. Slow down enough to hear what your body needs, because health isn't built in the gym or the pharmacy. It's restored every night when you close your eyes. Habit number 5. Keep moving, but keep it natural at 92. Most people would expect to see him with a cane, maybe even a wheelchair, but not this man. He still drives his old pickup, still tends to his garden, and still walks to the corner store. 5th and final habit is simple. Keep moving, but keep it natural. You don't need a gym membership to stay active, he says with a grin. You've got everything you need right where you are. For him, exercise has never been about lifting heavy weights or running marathons. It's been about moving his body in ways that feel good every single day. He calls it living movement. It's the kind of activity that doesn't feel like a chore. Gardening, sweeping the porch, walking to the park, even fixing a loose fence board. These are his workouts. Each morning, after his breakfast, he steps outside and takes a slow, mindful walk. Not to beat a step count, not to burn calories, simply to breathe, to feel the sun on his face, to stay connected with his surroundings. He believes nature has its own healing power. You move better when you're part of the world, not stuck inside four walls, he says. He's not pushing his body to its limits, but he's not letting it sit idle either. His joints stay flexible because he uses them daily. He stretches naturally when he reaches for a high shelf, bends to pull a weed, or squats to pick up his tools. Use it or lose it, he says, with a wink. A couple of times a week, he adds. Light body movements, what some might call functional exercises. Nothing fancy, some gentle squats by the garden fence. A few standing push-ups against the kitchen counter. Slow, controlled movements to keep his muscles awake. He jokes, I don't pump iron, but I do pump watering cans. One of his favorite activities is dancing. Not ballroom, not formal lessons, just simple, joyful dancing to old tunes in his living room. You can't frown when you're dancing, he laughs. It's good for the body and the soul. He also swears by doing things by hand, whether it's kneading dough, scrubbing a floor, or chopping vegetables. He finds ways to stay active in everyday tasks. Machines make life easier, but they also make you softer, he says. I'd rather use my hands and stay strong. He believes that movement should be woven into life, not separated from it. Exercise is what people do to fix what's sitting all day broke, he says. But if you never stop moving in small ways, you don't need to fix anything. Even when relaxing, he stays mindful of his posture. You won't catch him slouching into a couch. He prefers a sturdy chair, feet flat on the ground, back straight. Sit like you're ready to stand, he advises. It keeps you ready for life. On weekends, he enjoys short trips to the local farmer's market. It's not just about buying fresh produce. It's the walking, the lifting, the carrying. Small activities that keep him mobile and engaged. Every step counts, as long as you keep taking them. What he avoids is long periods of inactivity. The worst thing you can do is sit for hours and do nothing, he says. So he has a simple rule. Every hour, get up and move, even if it's just to stretch or step outside for a breath of fresh air. When people ask him about fancy workout routines, he smiles and shrugs. I don't have one. My life is my workout. And with that, he shows off a surprisingly steady balance for someone his age. Standing on one leg while chuckling. He's living proof that you don't need high-intensity workouts to stay fit into old age. You just need to keep moving naturally, consistently, and with joy. And so, his fifth habit comes down to this. Don't stop moving. Find ways to stay active in your daily life. Lift things. Walk places. Use your body for what it was made to do. Not for show, not for competition, but for living well. As he finishes his afternoon walk and heads back to his porch, you can see it clearly. His strength isn't in big muscles or speed. It's in his steadiness, his balance, his energy. It's in the way he moves through life with ease. At 92, he's still driving, still walking, still living. Not because of magic genes or extreme fitness routines, but because he never stopped moving. Motion is life, he says simply. Keep moving and life keeps moving with you. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. So there you have it. 5 simple habits that have kept this 92-year-old man healthy, happy, and still driving after all these years. No secret pills, no miracle diets, no extreme routines. Just honest, everyday choices done with care and consistency. He eats real food, moves his body naturally, treasures good sleep, stays connected with people, and keeps his mind sharp with curiosity and kindness. Nothing flashy, nothing complicated, just good, old-fashioned wisdom that many of us seem to have forgotten. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Health isn't built in one big leap. It's in the little things you do every day. The meals you cook, the steps you take, the laughs you share, the moments of quiet you give yourself. Small, steady habits that quietly add up to a long, vibrant life. He doesn't claim to have all the answers. He just knows what works for him. But looking at how he lives, it's hard not to be inspired. As he likes to say, life's not a sprint, son. It's a long, beautiful walk. Take your time, enjoy the view, and don't forget to wave at your neighbors. If his story resonated with you, if you found a bit of inspiration in his simple wisdom, we'd love for you to join us here at Our Wisdom. This channel is all about sharing timeless lessons from people who've truly lived the kind of insights you won't always find in textbooks or trending reels. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like and share it with someone who could use a little reminder that health and happiness often come from the simplest things. And if you have stories of your own, or perhaps a wise elder in your life whose habits are worth sharing, drop a comment below. Let's keep the wisdom alive together. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay curious, stay kind, keep moving forward. We'll see you in the next video, right here on Our Wisdom Asterisk.